the QR code, which is also on the printed schedule. Please keep tweeting, keep writing about us. Use the hashtags #LeadersInISB and #LIIBS 2023. So I think we have Mujib. We're still waiting for Mujib. Let me try and call the missing panelist. Acha ji, so if somebody, Shaha, could you please call Mujib Saab? So this session is on leadership and strategy in the age of disruption. So the pressure caused by the fast pace of change and an increasing sense of competitiveness today has caused traditional demanding and autocratic leadership approaches to not be workable anymore, whereas the new normal is characterized by constant change, agility, and innovation, which demands that the leaders of today communicate, engage, empower, and collaborate in order to bring about creativity and proficiency. This session brings together professionals from a variety of backgrounds who will share their experiences of leadership in the new age, which is the age of disruption. Our very favorite moderator, Saqib Ahmed, is going to take over this session now. Saqib.
Thank you very much, Ji. Let's start, Ji. Leadership and strategy in the age of disruption. Disruption is becoming a very common word today. It's all about change. It's all about, are we ready for this change? It's all about, the word disruption was supposed to be a negative word historically, but these days, this word is becoming a rather positive word because we are talking about how we have to get ourselves ready in the age of this disruption. And when we talk about disruption, let's be honest with each other. In our individual levels and in our professional lives, everything that we are touching is changing on such a fast pace that even we are trying to judge what is the next way forward. I remember when I was growing up, we were talking about a 5-year plan for the country. Today, we are talking about 6 months or a 1-year plans because we don't know where this disruption will lead us, where this disruption will take us, and what is the way forward on that one. I think one of the other important, I've been moderating many panels, and one of my requests for the panelists will be that even what questions come, let's talk about how we have to make changes in what we think. I think we have talked a lot about what is required to be done, what is the think tank, what the disruption can be. I think now this is more the time we talk about how we have to implement our strategies, what we are saying is the right way forward, especially for this country as well. So I think that should be the main theme that we are talking today, and that is the direction that we should take out. Irfan, I would be starting with you as the first question. How do you see, how's the concept of leadership and strategy evolved in this age of disruption? And what are the key attributes of the leader that need to possess today for this disruptive world today?
Yeah, thank you, Saqib. I think it's a great question and a very relevant one as well, because, the big disruption came, I think, in recent history, at the back of COVID, when we were all disruptive, right? And we have created a new normal. And since then, if you just reflect on all the changes around us, geopolitics, supply chain issues, macroeconomic issues in our case, there's a lot of uncertainty all around us. So I think it's just very relevant for any business or even people at a personal level to think different. And as you rightly said, gone are the days when you can plan long-term in any business. Now you have to be really agile in terms of how you adopt, how flexible you are towards those changes. And role of leadership become even more important and paramount. Reason being that there are a lot of people who are confused, who are uncertain, and you need to really give them, not just inculcate hope, but also give them some sort of sense of direction. And that's extremely important. How you do that when you don't know the answers yourself? And that's the biggest, I would say, question for leaders today. and how we are, and as you ask about, the practical examples, so I think my personal experience is that you need to be super transparent. You need to really tell people what you know and what you don't know. I think it's also about experimentation, and we've been, talking about, failing fast. I think this is the time where you need to really experiment and learn from the mistakes, because you're bound to make mistakes. You're bound to make some wrong calls. And how quickly you adapt and learn from those, I think, is another sign of a good leader or a good organization as such. Then I think the whole thinking around, as we're saying, the big thinking about resetting, where you reset. It's about upskilling. It's about challenging the status quo. It's also about, putting yourself into a zone where you're discomfortable or uncomfortable, because I think we all are in that zone by default these days, because we don't know and how to navigate. But I've seen, whether it's small businesses or large businesses, that's when you grow and learn the most. When you're pushed against the wall, you need to make choices which lead towards something big. Also, I think we need to see this as an opportunity, and many people talk about it in the context of last few years, that when things are beyond your control, how you utilize your time most. And I think one insight I can share here is the best thing is to actually invest in yourself. You can learn something new, a new skill set, which will really help you actually navigate. Because things will not be as bad as they are. Things will improve, and we had that session earlier today as well, when there's a lot of, speakers talk about the hope and talk about the big market and demographics and all those things. So I think if you are well prepared, if you're open, transparent, honest, if you're open to experiment, if you are innovative by testing those things, there's no doubt that you will do better than others. And I think that's the competitive advantage you need to build in the uncertain times.
Irfan raised a very important point for the leaders, that it's important to tell to the people what you know and what you don't know. It's not necessary that every leader has to say that they want and they know everything. I think it's important that transparency that is there to the people that we go for. And secondly is the experimentation. This is the time of experimentation. And we will make mistakes, but we need to move forward and learn fast and adopt it fast. So thank you very much, Irfan, for this insight. Serena, it's an honor to have you on my panel. I think we have grown up seeing you as taking the leading and leaders position in this tech industry overall.
I'm 200 years old, just in case people don't know.
It will tell my age also. So I think one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, that in this age of disruptions, what are the pitfalls that the leaders can put themselves in, and how they can overcome them as well? Because it's very easy today to start something and then collapse it well. What is the learning there?
Thank you, Saqib. Thank you, Asfar, for setting this up. Very grateful. I think it's a great audience. See, there's a lot of DIY kind of things on leadership. You open up a book or you look at Google and it's all about how you're going to be a great leader. Personally, I think leaders can be trained to become leaders. That's also not a very popular thought. We think leaders are born. I think people are born with a little instinct, and then you can groom them. But I think of everything that a leader can be challenged with, there are two things, Saqib, that I think are critical. One is the vision. The vision must drive the business, and the vision must be extraordinary blue ocean kind of vision. Let me give you two examples. Everybody's heard of the Kodak company. You remember that little line that said, it's a Kodak moment. So what happened to Kodak? Kodak developed the first digital camera, and you'll hear a lot of references to IT and technology from me, because that's what I do for a living. That's all I know. They developed the first digital camera, and yet they got left behind in that race. The reason was that the guy who came to the boss of Kodak, he said, something is happening in this space and we should try to develop more. And the guy threw him out of the office and he fired him, basically. And lo and behold, they lost the market completely. Somebody else came in and took over. Why? Because there was a lack of vision at the on the side of the company bosses. Their people were telling them, but they were not listening. Take another example, and I'm speaking from the point of view of why vision is important. There was a little thing called SMS, short messaging service, and we were all using it at one time. And SMS technology became so smug about themselves कि ये तो हमने ultimate कर लिया ना, अब इससे आगे तो कुछ होना नहीं, इसलिए चलते रहो जो चल रहा है. And their numbers kept improving, and their graph was rather like that, you know. It was tapering a little, but it was upwardly mobile. पीछे से एक छोटी सी चीज़ निकलती आ रही थी. This was called the WhatsApp, right? And nobody did any research or market evaluation of what's happening in the competitive space. One day, the SMS graph was going like this, and WhatsApp came up and did this. This has happened to Nokia. This has happened to many other technologies as well. When the leader doesn't have vision, the company is rudderless. And when the company is rudderless, what do you actually mean by that? You mean the people don't know where to go. So the second thing that's important is people management. A leader does not let people feel distressed, feel disappointed, feel insecure. And this I would apply to countries, to nations, to companies, to households. When the moment you start to feel angst in your heart and in your head you're thinking, you know, this is not right, that's because your leadership has not been able to give you that confidence. So at the top level, I would say vision is something that they lack, and if they lack it, then they'll get left behind. If your leader is visionary, this is likely not going to happen. And at the bottom end, you would say people management and all of the things that we talk about, good communication. Irfan said you have to share with your teams. Strategy must trickle down all the way to the lowest common denominator in a company. Everybody should buy into that strategy. But people are the weakest link in your chain, or they can be the strongest link in your chain, depending upon how the leadership treats them. I would stop at those two, because other than that, if you say communication बहुत अच्छी होनी चाहिए, plans बड़े अच्छे होने चाहिए, execution बहुत detail में होना चाहिए, that's all there. But the leader is the one who inspires, and whether they inspire through their own credible personality or they inspire through their ideas. I mean, everybody hated Steve Jobs. He was a very rude man. But everybody bought fully into his idea of whatever he was, you know, concocting, whether it be the Macintosh or the iPhone or whatever. So I think these two things.
Thank you very much, Serena. Leadership is a responsibility. It can be put on you by fate with your ability, or you are put in that position, but once you have this responsibility, you should own it. And you should own it because your own personality is the one that needs to be inspiring. People see towards you, people seek guidance from you, and you don't know what they are learning from you. So very rightfully said, Serena, I think vision and how we manage the people, and you said a very important point that the strategy should be understood to the last person in the chain. And if in your organization the strategy is not understood, then perhaps the leadership is not doing the right role over there. So very nicely said over there. Ayla, over to you, and I'm the most luckiest moderator because I have the maximum diversity in the panel since morning. So I think that's something that I say great for managing it. Ayla, we have been talking about leadership and we have been talking about growth mindset continuously. How in this disruptive environment the leader can continue with the growth mindset, and how he can learn from his mistakes and implement the results as well. Difficult question, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you, Sakib. Difficult questions are always fun. So disruption is, of course, is a very, very interesting topic. And I believe when leaders are looking at disruption, it's obviously continuously happening around us. We need to sort of see that what kind of disruptions are there: geopolitical, geographical, economic disruptions, globalization, deglobalization, and then all of that with profound technological and digital innovation. And each one of these disruptions impact our personal lives as well as whatever is happening within our organization and also the teams who are working within our organization. So the leader in the organization, or perhaps the leaders, and there's obviously not one, there are many people who in their own roles assume leadership role. They all need to be mindful of all these kind of disruptions and take out the best out of these and understand that what are the real opportunities in all these disruptions, and that can lead to further innovations. Building on what Serena also mentioned, that having a vision is extremely important, and at the same time being able to navigate in an environment where uncertainty would be very, very prevalent. So that is what a leader should be doing, should be leading at the edge, leading at the front, ensuring that even if there's a very adverse situation, there are opportunities in them. The kind of global ecosystem that we are in, the global dynamics and coming closer more to home, lots of challenges that we have. I think given that at times one feels that we are really hitting the wall, there are still a lot of opportunities that we can find in this absolute time of challenge and uncertainty and adversity. Yes, there can be many, many failures, but I think not giving up as we say that, but we need to sort of practice that as well. We have a lot of global examples as well. Elon Musk, SpaceX was a failure many, many times, but eventually he never gave up. Lots of other organizations, they also allow such kind of culture in their organizations where they empower people to think in a very innovative manner and outside their core area of business. Microsoft is one. They have an initiative called 1 Week where team members, they gather to work on projects which is completely out of their own, say, core area of business. That has led to many innovations. Jeff Bezos has also done something similar, and Kindle was one such innovation that came out of like these innovative discussions and something that was just not in their core area of business. I believe the lesson here is that empowering team, valuing their input, valuing their unique ability, and getting them to provide solutions and understanding that teams and probably many different organizations, stakeholders, they need to work in a collaborative manner. So, and at times when there are so many interesting or uncertain disruptions happening, being ready and open to opportunities that are coming out of uncertainty. And I think we are living in a day and age where we cannot predict everything, but we can be agile, we can be flexible. And with that mindset and empowering people, empowering teams, working in a collaborative manner, upskilling, continuously upskilling. And I was actually looking at what was written here on the screen, like change, realign, reinvent, align. All of this is what leaders now and always need to be cognizant of.
Thank you, Ayla. I think you highlighted the point of empowerment. You know, gone were the days when the information was stuck into one office or in one file, and the person who had that file was the most powerful person in the organization. These days are gone. I think today, the successful organization is the one which empowers the people to the last end, and the complete set of information lies with him or her to make the decision. Trust me, the decisions that the CEO makes and the decision that the person on the ground makes, there's not much of a difference. The only difference is the set of information that is required to make the decision. So if you are able to give that empowerment to the person, I think that definitely makes the difference. And the other important point that Ayla highlighted is we need to have the skill to find an opportunity in the crisis. Trust me, every crisis is difficult, but there is always an opportunity in the crisis. How we get to that one, that defines a leader. Mujib, you have been part of almost all my panels, and I love the smile and the discussion when I start chat with you. And I will start with you. We all are talking about that there is a disruption, and then how to handle that disruption as a leader. I want to come up and ask you, what are the frameworks that we need to deploy so that the disruptions should not happen? We should be ready about it, and how we should stop that the disruption should be as less as possible, assuming what is going to be happening in future for us.
Thanks, Saqib. Once again, at least $1 billion question, if not $1 trillion question, on how you can be preemptive towards disruption. I think my colleagues spoke about the ability of leaders to build strategies, to build frameworks, to create plans that are sort of future-proof. There's a lot of conversation these days that takes place around that as well. Another concept, not sort of trying to diminish the importance of leaders and CEOs or heads of organizations, is purpose-led organizations. Organizations that galvanize and spirit their colleagues and their team members around a common purpose, which then drives the vision of that organization as well. And when that purpose is instilled in the employee base, in team members, across various functions, across various departments, it becomes easier because the entire sort of organization is moving towards the same direction. Now, how does that help you preempt disruption, or how does that help you overcome or create a plan that allows you to be ahead of it? I think if the purpose is built in a way that allows you to be the disruptor as opposed to being someone who responds to disruption, it will automatically, it's a lot simpler said than done, obviously, but it will instill this sense in each team that they will always be on the lookout for what's happening around the edges. They will not be afraid of trying out things that perhaps are not common space in their industry in other areas. It is, again, my colleagues spoke about this, about empowerment. How can you empower your teams to be able to make those decisions that help you become the disruptor and not wait for someone else in your industry to do something and then you start following it? Again, it is difficult, especially for large enterprises, because of conflicting priorities, but because of challenges, and especially in these times when there is macroeconomic uncertainty in a lot of geographies around the world. But that is one thing that we have seen really work, a purpose that unites team members globally, and a purpose that encourages them to be on the lookout for disruption. Another framework that I've experienced has been very successful, not only at S&P Global, but also in other enterprises, is embracing a truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture. This is something that is... Thank you, guys. This is all, I think, our team doing that. Appreciate it. And I think there was a time when this was meant to be a nice to have, was meant to be something that organizations did because it looked good in their annual report. That time has long gone. Unless and until there are, a number of studies and research that clearly indicates that the more diverse, equitable, and inclusive your workspace is, it will drive business results. It will enable you to be able to face challenges that are happening around us more appropriately. So I think a relentless focus on creating that is going to enable you to have the ideas, have the creativity to look out for any disruption that might be around in your specific industry.
Very rightfully said. I think these days the industries are not in competition with their competition that is present in that industry. Today, all the industries are in competition with disruption because there is something that comes out of the blue and it completely takes away. And as Mujib mentioned, the purpose is very important to be understood well in the organization to make sure that we can manage that disruption in the best possible way. Irfan, coming back to you, when we talk about disruption, we talk about technology, and then we talk about leadership. Now, this technology wave is running so fast that the word ethical leadership becomes much more important because overall the laws and overall are not so strong to define us, because when we are managing disruption and we are getting to a result, ethics are still an important part. How the ethical leadership can play an important role in this disruptive environment today?
Yeah, Shakib, another great question. I think I'll just say that even before technology and technology disrupting us, it goes back to fundamental. You talk about the mission of an organization. I think the values, there's a purpose, why everyone has a mission statement. And if we feel that it's just only for the boardroom or a nice board at the entrance and leadership doesn't believe in it, I think people are smart, especially in the knowledge economy and the knowledge workers. They actually pay a lot of attention towards what is the main purpose of our organization. Where I'm spending most of my time, productive time of a day, is it aligned with my own DNA or not? So I think people, and especially the younger generation, have started asking those questions a lot more than previously. Technology has brought in another dimension to it. And that dimension is, obviously, as you're saying, the regulations, what I call it algorithm biases, right? Where you use technology a lot, and then the outcome is perhaps biased. I mean, there are many examples. For example, when you use AI to screen all the applicants for a job posting, it could be biased, and many research have shown that there are biases against, for example, gender-based biases, there could be ethnic biases, etc., because that's how we are feeding the algorithm. And that is something which poses a bigger question on the leadership, where you have to actually apply and checks and balances to make sure that it's a very open and transparent system you're building in your organization. So technology is definitely complicating it. Then the whole, I would say, the race towards profitability and the practices which are being used by large corporations at the back of technology also poses another dilemma, which is at core is an ethical dilemma. And there's a lot of discussion around it, but trust me that people, and we have seen even in large tech, hyperscalers in US as well, where people from within the organization have started questioning the policies, whether it's related to privacy, data protection, consumer protection, etc. So I think it becomes a real question as fundamental as your core business, that how are you applying that information with your customers, and in some cases millions and billions of customers are entrusted upon you. Are you doing it fairly, transparently, ethically, an unbiased way or not? So I think it becomes a true dimension of leadership where you need to be aware that, first of all, I mean, the employees are asking about those questions. The wider society expect you to be more upright on those questions. And it's also your role as leader to find out, because the policy framework, the regulations are still being created. And that's the discussion happening today as we speak, that how we create those frameworks, and especially AI, I think, is a great example where we are getting into a lot of uncharted territory, and it's a collective responsibility to define the rules of the game, because this can actually create a lot of issues which could be social, economic, and ethical issues.
Irfan rightfully pointed out, in a country like Pakistan, where culture is equally important as religion, disruption is coming, and it's very important that how we maintain our ethics in the light of this religion and culture, and then also be part of this change that is coming in and embrace it as well. And one important sentence that Irfan said, people are smart. let's understand as leaders, they understand what we are doing and what we are saying and what is actually happening. It's very important that we understand their smartness and make the best use of them in the ethical environment of this country. So thank you very much, Irfan, for that insight. Samina, coming to you and leading the question from where Irfan left off over here. We know that the IQ of the people is important for the organization and the country, but the EQ, the emotional intelligence, and the resilient nature of the organization, of the people, is equally important in that disruptive environment that we are talking about. How the leaders can manage their EQ and how they can help the organizations and the people in the organization to build that EQ and be resilient to manage this disruptive environment as it is reaching us. Yeah, you can be a little close to the mic, that will help.
You know, we keep talking about suddenly disruption hui. So disruption is part of life. Life is what happens to you while you're busy planning it. Or 10% is what happened to you, 90% how you deal with it. And that's a leader's job. अभी आप ये देखें कि USA के अंदर 50% of households को electricity मिलने में 60 साल लगे थे, 60. Look at the time span. So even if people were disrupted or distressed or something, 60 साल में तो वो छोटे-छोटे chunks में उतनी ज़्यादा angst या उतना ज़्यादा stress नहीं feel होगी. Move forward, telephone को accept करने में या telephone को prevalent करने में 10 साल लगे. Smartphones पे आ जाएं, उसके बाद maybe 5 साल लगे. और technologies बीच में आई. How long do you think it took ChatGPT to overwhelm us? Take a guess. Weeks? Anybody else? One day for 100 million users. One day. Look at the speed. What is actually changing also is not just the scenario of a COVID or a black swan event, although COVID too was not a black swan event, but it was close. More than that, the speed of how it impacts us. And that's what gives people stress. And absolutely, I have always been 100% believer in focusing on people. I'm so happy that we don't refer to them as talent, human resource, personnel. यानी हम लोग हैं ना, तो हमें आप people कह दें, ज़्यादा आसान है, बजाय इसके कि आप 6-7 fancy किस्म के words निकालें. I was trying to think of examples of when that faith in leadership has happened in our context. One, of course, was when this country was being made, and everybody had such faith in one man that they would not be able to understand his language, but they would follow him. Lately, जो हुआ COVID के अंदर, NCOC ने जो काम किया, I don't know if everybody here realizes it, but I was out of the country, and the immense curiosity about how Pakistan was doing this strange thing called smart lockdown was appreciated. It's a classic case study. Okay, there was a country that maybe has not seen the best of technology usage, but is able to decide कि इस मोहल्ले में इन 4 घरों को हम लॉकडाउन कर रहे हैं. उसमें आपके टेलकोस भी शामिल थे, उसमें उन्होंने सारों को स्टेक होल्डर्स को मिला के काम किया था. This is when leadership gives you direction, and at the end of that you feel more comfortable as a human being, as a participant, and you buy in. If this doesn't happen, now resilience is all of this, the time angle also impacts it, but what else also impacts it is the intensity of that disruption that is happening. The children today are more resilient. Why? Because the impact of that technology-based disruption is very big. It's massive compared to what it used to be even aaj se 10 saal, 20 saal pehle. So when you're dealing with great teams, you're actually dealing with people who can be made great or who can just run things run of the mill. पाकिस्तान के अंदर आप सोचें कि हमने अभी बात की, पाकिस्तान में एक प्रॉब्लम है हमें कि हम फेलियर को सेलिब्रेट नहीं करते. So lately we were thinking that we would do some podcasts, and I went to a friend of mine and I said, I'd like to do the first one with you, and we'll call it Celebrating Failure. And he said, not with me, you're not doing that. I mean, he accepts he's had failures, but he doesn't want to talk about it. Now there is this one gentleman by the name of Salman Khan, not the actor Salman Khan, the Khan Academy, which is a massive success today. And he had he would trip over and he would have obstacles and he would have constraints, and he failed many times before Khan Academy actually became Khan Academy. He gave a whole lecture on celebrating failure, and it was all about how he had done things wrong many, many times and how that learning was more precious to him. I think communication by the leadership down to the lowest common denominator of your team is important. I think buying into the vision, like you said, Kay, if it's a mission statement, everybody should buy into it. It's not just words. So when you say something like, Women's Day मनाना चाहिए, March 8th एक दिन होता है हमारा साल में Women's Day, बाकी सारे साल तो हम सोते रहते हैं, शायद सब औरतें, I think, because we're not celebrated the rest of the year. And I see a picture in the paper that has 12 men with little pink flowers, and they're saying, so-and-so company celebrating Women's Day. How do you suppose the women felt about that? So I'm going to be slightly political here, and I'll say that when the women of your country are feeling insecure, when they're feeling downtrodden, when they're feeling harassed, at that time you cannot say things like, oh, women are well taken care of, or there is 50%, 50-50 gender ratio. Those things become irrelevant because a greater disruption has befallen us. So when you do something in terms of a disruption, for example, going back to corporate world, you want to have a better gender ratio. You want 70-30, nahi 60-40. So 60 is men and 40 is women. But what do? You have a tried and tested model which you've gone on and used for centuries, men being in the workplace, right? And you take these women who have all sorts of odd problems, बच्चे हैं उनके, घर में खाना पकाना है, और 36,000 चीज़ें हमारे साथ जुड़ी होती हैं, टंगी होती हैं, right? And you take this, a bunch of women, and you place it here. मर्दों का तरीका आप औरतों के ऊपर मसल्लत करें, वो हो ही नहीं सकता, अल्लाह ने हमें बनाया है फ़र्क. So this kind of thing in disruption also impacts more. Double whammy है ये. इसके बाद 3-4 और ऐसी चीज़ें आ जाती हैं. So unless you get out of the box, in fact, think there is no box. Can you not do that? There's a company in Argentina that lets people roam. They're roamers. 6 महीने वो फाइनेंस में 1 महीना गुजारेंगे, HR में गुजारेंगे, टेक टीम में गुजारेंगे, फिर वो फैसला करेंगे हमने बैठना कहाँ है, क्या काम करना है. Completely out of the blue, but they're doing it, right? Starbucks, if I ask you what does Starbucks sell, many people will say coffee. It's actually not coffee they sell, they have horrible coffee. It's an experience, it's an ambience that you accept as a place where you feel welcome and secure. So when you go to Blue Ocean from Greenfield, or you go to Red Ocean after that, these are all strategies for bringing up innovative solutions. Starbucks brought something new. What we've got to think is why our people don't do that. The only one I can think of right now is Nirala Sweets. If you haven't studied the case study for it, you should look at it in the LIIBS archive. There's an A and B parts. So I won't go into that for fear of time. But we are not disruptors. We are the reactive ones to disruption. And I think the big change that has to happen, I heard everything today and it was like up here, you know, यहाँ मेरे सर के ऊपर से गुजर रहा था. लेकिन execution के level पे, if you deconstruct it down, this is all it's about. Think of every employee's need and don't try to greenfield it. कि बनी हुई एक चीज़ है इसी में लगा दो. Go Blue Ocean and say, why can't I do this completely differently? What's stopping me? And when you start thinking like that as a leader, your employees start to feel secure, they feel connected, they buy into the mission. Invariably that happens. And when that happens, you have a strong team. Once you have a strong team, you can deal with the disruption a little better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serena. आपने इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस के क्वेश्चन में सबको इमोशनल कर दिया है. आई कैन टेल यू
ये मुझे बहुत अच्छा आता है करना, लोगों को रुलाना.
आई थिंक जो इस टेक में जो दो इम्पॉर्टेंट बात थी, सेलिब्रेटिंग फेलियर्स, इसके लिए बड़ा दिल चाहिए, बड़ा जज्बा चाहिए होता है. वी डोंट वांट टू एसोसिएट आवरसेल्फ विद फेलियर्स, हम पसंद ही नहीं करते. बट इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड टेक अवे फ्रॉम दैट. एक सक्सेस को हम 100 टाइम्स मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे, बट we will not ready to share this, the failures over there. Very, very rightfully pointed out. And the second thing is, again, going back to the masses and reaching to the people at the end. Thank you, Serena, for that one. Ayla, coming to you. In this disruptive world, ye short-term goals or long-term goals, they are very important for the organizations. You know, we have a vision to achieve something in a certain period of time, and then we have a vision and a pressure to achieve a certain goal in next 6 months also. And then this disruption is coming in parallel. How the leaders can make that balance, that they achieve the short-term goals of the organization, but also achieve the long-term vision that is important for the organization and for the country also.
Yeah.
Here you go.
So the simple and on a lighter note, the answer would be कि नज़र का चश्मा पहने जो कि आपको दूर की भी दिखाए और पास की भी दिखाए. So bifocal lens is what we all need to wear all the time. But having said this, the bifocal lens, what it shows you, the goalpost also changes and evolves. So the long-term goals and the short-term goals, they keep on changing with everything that is, we're talking here about disruption, we are talking about the enabling ecosystem, internal, external, everything, so that all has an impact. And again, I would link it to the empowerment of people, that everybody needs to see a short-term and long-term opportunity in what they are doing and how they are creating value. One of the very important points that I would like to bring up here is that having a value creation mindset is extremely important to see that what are your goals and how do you evolve your goals. When we talk about strategy, so within organizations, why do organizations make a 3-year strategy, 5-year strategy, then a rolling business plan, etc., all of that? Because your goals are evolving, your goals are changing. And Mujib, you mentioned earlier about purpose. I think purpose as a long-term goal, and unless your purpose becomes really flawed at some point in time, you would like to sort of stick to it. So I think those are the few things that you need to be mindful of. So everybody should have a responsibility, and communicating clearly and giving people the responsibility and also recognizing the outcome of the actions taken, I think that is very, very important. And I would also like to say that when long-term की बात करते हैं, तो long-term is not just 5 years, 10 years. Long-term should be 5 generations ahead. We all talk about our different stakeholders, planet being one of them. The planet has finite resources. A lot of what we need to achieve, whether it is in the area of energy, whether it is in the area of communication, whether it is providing food, whether it's providing whatever, land, finite. Metals on this planet, finite. A lot of things are finite. So we need to see that how are we using our resources. So the resources are finite, hence we also need to see that how do we devise our long-term purpose, long-term strategy, while seeing that 5 generations down the road, what the impact of that will be. So I think that's something we need to start and nudge our thinking, that the long term and the short term is continuously evolving. Second, the responsibility and the empowerment of that must lie with everybody. Third, long term is not this 5 or 10 years. Long term is very long term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayla. Long term is very long term. Long term is not about one generation. And to be honest, as leaders today, we need to own it. The way this disruption is happening, if we are not going to make decisions right now, it will hit our 5th generation. And we can't do anything. And they will blame you guys and us that they didn't take the right decision at the right time. So very rightfully pointed out, Ayla, it's our ownership to make our 5th generation right today. And we need to take that ownership as leaders today. Mujib, coming to you as a final question for this panel, on one side, we ask the new leaders that are coming in, they need to be risk-taking. They need to make decisions. And then we don't provide them that environment to make that risk-taking and decisions. And on the other hand, we also give them accountability of the results. कि भाई आपको इस क्वार्टर में इतना करना है और साथ-साथ you need to make sure कि आपके ethics, your leadership, this should also run very good. How that balance can be managed and how we can provide this environment to these new leaders that they can go along with the risk-taking without the fear that we put them in parallel in.
Yeah, that's another tough one. I think the balance is very delicate because delivering on your KPIs or your sales targets or keeping the plumbing running, as they say, or keeping the lights on, that's table stakes. That has to be, that's understood, that has to be done. The other areas that you mentioned become something that's on top of that or equally important. A couple of frameworks, and I'm sorry, I'll go slightly tactical on this, but a couple of frameworks that I've come across, one from our own enterprise and one from someone else, that I felt did a good job of providing opportunities for balancing these two things. When you talk about innovation and disruption or risk-taking, a program, and I think, again, it goes back to what all of us have been saying. Intent, empowerment, strategy, vision of the leader, wo sab to chahiye hi aapko. That is, beyond that, you also, one best practice that has worked really well, again for us, and I've seen it work in other areas as well, is an innovation contest type of program, but not a program that, again, is just meant to look good on your website or meant for just advertising, but a program that actually allows colleagues and people in your teams to be able to participate, give ideas, take those risks, and create a safe space in their sort of tactical goals as well as budgets to take those experiments, to make those new innovative ideas work. We do it in the form of, as I said, the starting point is a contest that generates those ideas, they get filtered down, and eventually there is a separate budget that comes from, obviously, the top that allows people to invest that money into those new ideas. That has generated in efficiency tools for us, for internal workflows and processes. That has resulted in at least 5 new product features in the last 2 years that are people built, people that didn't have a direct role in those areas, but people were able to use that program and build, take those risks. It also might have resulted in a 3x number of 5 of products and ideas that didn't make it to commercialization. But it was a tangible outcome that we were able to generate from it. Another best practice and a specific framework that I've seen work really well, especially for companies that sell solutions to clients, whether they're services or products, is measuring an innovation component as part of, just how you measure that deal. Traditionally, it is measured as whatever the financial component is, whatever the technical component is, but adding an innovation component will instill the right mindset from the get-go in our colleagues and team members to make sure that each solution that is being provided has that component. The last comment I will make slightly on a different tangent, related though, is in Pakistan specifically, we want risk-taking, we want all of these things. One of the biggest challenges is the system, our education system that creates the people who we are going to want to take risks and want to be innovative. I think a key question, perhaps for a different panel and for a different conversation, is that system creating that mindset or not? Sadly, I think the answer to that is not really. It is not creating a mindset that is enabled for risk-taking, for thinking out of the box, or as Serena very rightly said, imagine that there is no box. There, for majority of that system, the teaching is there is definitely a box, and don't you dare go outside the box. Now, if the expectation is that one fine morning when those graduates come to work for the corporate sector, we will weave a magic wand and their lifelong learnings of the 16, 18 years will change, that's not going to happen. We try, but it takes time. So I think that's an equally important factor to keep in mind as we address this topic of disruption and driving innovation, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Mujib. I think you touched the topic on how the leaders should be developed, and the leadership development start from the very start. Somebody asked me, when you realize when you will become a leader? I said, I realized it when at the age of 10, I was leading a cricket team of the Mohalla, and I was getting all the key players to have the right set of resources to win the match. I think that was the time when I realized, yes, I have leadership capabilities there at that point of time.
Even the next Mohalla, maybe you were acquiring their talent as well.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have talked about leadership, we have talked about disruption, we have talked about ethics in the leadership, we have talked about IQ and emotional quotient, we have talked about today how to learn from our mistakes, how to celebrate our failures. We have also talked about what is required and what is the framework that is required to be important for our future leaders to be made. I will just say one thing. These are difficult times as a country for us, and it's very important for us that we remain positive around this one. And it's important for us that these leaders should get the implementers now. We have a lot of think tank, we have talked a lot, and I think it's very important for us now to get what we are talking about implemented in our roles what we are. Enough of the thinking. Get the implementation done so that we can see the results. And I think that is the key that is to be there. So thank you very much, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for this panel as well. Can we take questions? Because I see hands. Okay, so only 2 questions that I will say. Yes, sir. And I come to you. Can we have a mic on the right hand side, please? Yes, it's coming. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Nazir Ahmed, Professor at National University of Medical Sciences, Islamabad. It's really nice, and you have talked rightly about disruption and role of leadership. If you will see recent pandemic and still is going on, COVID-19 has the real disruption around the world. 8.5 trillion US dollar economy has been disrupted. It has disrupted your social fabric, governments, departments, every sphere of life, including health, wealth, environment, everything. So my question is, as a nation, as a leader, what we are doing? Are we allocating enough resources to meet our national needs, international needs? Ms. Ayla talked about sustainable development. Yes, we need sustainable development. Are we keeping those things in mind while making our planning, while developing, strategies? And again, in my opinion, it's the leadership who take care of policies, whether those are being implemented or not.
Fair enough, sir. Let's get to the answer. Irfan or Samina, would you like to? to give that one? 2 minutes.
Yeah, I will be just quick. I can't say as a nation, but what we need to do, or what are we doing? But I think what we need to do is to obviously prepare our citizens much better, right? So whether it's a skill set. So what we see at the back of this crisis, at least there's a silver lining in terms of opportunity. I give you a couple of examples. One is sort of adaptation of, I would say, technology. So we talk about Pakistan being cash economy. We've been trying to push a lot of that sort of customer behavior shift towards digitization, whether it's, mobile wallets, digital banking, also, G2P interaction. And we had limited success. But here comes COVID, and in few days, the whole thing shifted. We've seen a huge adoption, we've seen a huge acceleration, and now the new normal actually we have settling, not at the previous levels, but much better levels. So I think that's a silver lining to me, that how we are able to actually adopt to this new reality to create more efficiencies, to empower our people a lot more, gives me hope. Whether this is enough, perhaps not. We need to think more holistic. But I think these are some examples, at least in the domain close to me, where I see definitely some positive impacts of that. Yeah.
Thank you. We will have the panelists later on over there. We have time shortage. Honestly, we need to.
Sakib, I think we need to close because we're already running a bit late. So I'm sorry. We'll take that question in the next session. Sorry. So actually, we are running a little behind schedule. So I'm going to now jump right to the presentation of souvenirs. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. And listening to you just reminded me of the famous saying, you either disrupt or you end up being disrupted yourself. So that has been summed up really well. In order to present Dr. Ishrat Hussein's book, I would request Usman Yusuf, Director, Natural Communications, to please join us on stage, as well as Ali Akai, Chairman, Martin Dow Group. Is Ali around? Is Javed Bhai around from Martin Dow? Sharaf, you're there. Please join us on stage. Ji. I would request Mr. Michael Foley, our Regional Director, Airtel Africa, to please present the souvenirs. Michael? Okay. So, Michael, thank you very much. The first panelist, Mr. Irfan Wahab Khan, CEO Telenor Pakistan. Please request you to receive your souvenir from Michael. All right. The next speaker, Ayla. Serena Rizwan, founder of Kamkaj. And our very favorite Mujib Zahoor, MD S&P Global. Our moderator still has to receive his. Achha, okay.
I want to say something for Michael Foley. He served as the CEO of Telenor in Pakistan, and I'm grateful to Irfan Wahab Khan, who first time introduced him to me, and we became buddies and brothers, and finally he's here again in Islamabad. I must say that he is one of the biggest ambassadors of Pakistan globally. So a special facilitation for Michael.
Sakib, I'll request you to please stay back on stage. Again, a very popular saying that if you wish to make God laugh, plan. And things are bound to get disrupted. So continuing with this theme of disruption, historically future has always hidden behind the curtain of disruption. And it just sort of reveals itself with a smirk and says, well, you thought you were the masters, and takes us back to square one. So I again invite Saqib, Managing Director, SAP Pakistan, Iraq and Afghanistan, to moderate this session. And I'll begin with the panel because Saqib we are already now familiar with. Asif Peer, Chief Executive Officer, Systems Limited. He's leading Systems Limited into the new era of growth in the IT and BPO sectors. Mr. Adil Farhat, Chief Executive Officer, Procter & Gamble, Pakistan, an advocate of strong momentum via continuous disruptions. Dr. Aisha Khan, Regional Managing Director, Acumen. Strong background in business strategy, economic policy, international development. She's focused on understanding how to build successful businesses in the emerging markets. A very endearing, gentle Syed Munis Abdullah Alvi, Chief Executive Officer, K Electric Limited, a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. He has to his credit a lot of new initiatives that have been products of rethinking. And finally, I invite Sami Wahid, Managing Director, Mondelez, Pakistan Limited. Again, extensive experience in the MENAP region and products that give a lot of happiness to our kitchen cabinets and to our families. I was just going through the list of products like Cadbury, Oreo, Milka, Tang, and I was like wondering, wow, this is what I would like to do also. Lovely. So I hand it over to Saqib to carry on the conversation on disruption with our new illustrious panel.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. I think in the first session there was a talk about continuity, that there should be, the leadership should be given the chance to continue for 5 to 10 years. So I thank you, Asfar, that at least you gave me the continuity to continue with the 2 sessions out over there, so we can have some decent progress in terms of the discussion that we were having. So ladies and gentlemen, we talk about the strategy and leadership in disruption in the first session. This session is about overall how the disruption is going to impact the future. Now this is the difference. You know, the word future, its timelines is completely changing as we are moving from one year to another. You know, when we started our dreams, we talked about that, okay, we will be doing this, in 50 years we will be owning this house, owning this car, the world will be moving on this space, and we made our thought process based on that future. I will be honest enough, in the last 15 years since the advent of the smartphones, this future and its timelines have completely changed. What we think today that could have been possible in the next 20 years, that is possible in the next 2 years. And we don't know what is going to hit us in the next 20 years, and that's the reality. And that's something that we are going to talk about this panel. What is the future all about, and where overall the disruptive technologies will take us. So Asif, starting from you, what do you think are some notable examples of disruptive technologies or innovations that are very significantly impacted the IT industry?
Okay. So thank you, Saqib. Thank you, Asfar, for organizing such an amazing event. So first, I think I would like to start like what is disruption is all about. It's a strategic inflection point, right? So I think if one's saying that the competition that kills you looks like you. So basically you need to understand that you look at any example, what happened, like how disruption happens, that you redefine an existing industry problem, right? So there is an existing industry problem, you redefine and solve that problem, like Uber did. Amazon did. There was an existing industry problem, they disrupted the industry, and they redefine an existing problem. Or you can, brand new problem, then you can come up with a solution and solve the problem in an existing industry. Existing industry problem you can solve and disrupt that, right? So again, like Netflix did, like when Blockbuster was there, there's an industry existing problem, it solves it, it's a disruption, right? So as I said, that the competition that kills you won't look like you. That's what it means, that you have to find your niche in disruption. Whichever industry you are, there are multiple people from various industries, various discipline. Find your niche when you're talking about disruption. When you find your niche, how would you do it? It's a customer centricity, it's customer engagement, and customer experience. When you think about all three things about customer, you will definitely identify the problem in your ecosystem. You don't have to go further. When I said redefining in existing industry, it means in Pakistan. You look at the ecosystem, like a lot of fintechs got developed, a lot of mobile money wallet came in because there was an existing fiscal space, there was a problem. And somebody disrupted, somebody came up with an idea, innovated that, and when innovation happens, you need to think about scalability and sustainability for the disruption as well. It's not like you solve the problem, yeah, I solved the problem, but I can't scale it to the mega level, so it's not sustainable. Then it will die down and it will never be. Disruption also needs to survive through cash flows and things like that, right? So these are the three basic building blocks, I would say, from the disruption. Now, Saqib, to your question, right, what in recent times which technology has disrupted us? There are many. Like, I belong to services industry, right? We provide IT services so I will start with that. How our industry is disrupted, like during the COVID times, right? And with the Gen Z population, their mindset, it's a complete, pre-COVID, if someone doesn't come to office, we thought that he is on leave. Now, just one disruption happened, the mega one, we transformed as a human being immediately. We disrupted ourselves. We started working from home. We provided security. We provided the convenience. Now, Gen Z people, they are more social than social connections they avoid, and they just better on Teams. They are performing very well to our customers and responding very well by working from home. This is also a disruption. Like, it's disrupted the entire thing, right? So the services industry globally. So I don't need the physical infrastructure to grow faster. So it gives us an amazing opportunity. So disruption provides an opportunity, right? And it provided an opportunity to service industry that we don't have to have 100% capacity physical infrastructure to grow. So that's why we can grow at a faster pace, and that's why we are doing, and that's why the services industry is growing faster pace, because physical infrastructure is isolated from that. So now I'll just take most of you guys know about ChatGPT, generative AI. That's what it's the engine behind it. In simple terminology, what it is, before generative AI, before ChatGPT was known, we were having the limitation in AI where we were saying that if you don't have the historical data, if you don't have the historical data of your problem, your industry, or your domain, you will not be able to predict and prescribe through machine learning and AI. But now with this generative AI, it learns from the past, and then it creates the data based on the examples and the samples. It creates tons of data. And now once it creates the data, it is producing the brain that you can ask and you can get a response from the collection of the past and the collection of the generation data that generative AI produce. And then what it does, then it predicts and then it prescribes to you what you can do. That is the major difference between AI and machine learning. Machine learning gives you prediction, and AI gives you prescription, what you need to do based on productivity. So all the businesses, whatever businesses you are, doesn't matter. Even us for running this event and marketing and PR, he needs the data. Anyone needs the data to make an insightful decision. And with the disruption that is happening in data with generative AI, machine learning, and big data, it's immense. And this now, look how the disruptions are related to each other. This AI and generative AI cannot work without the cloud, because cloud, you need to store tons of data. Big data generates the tons of data. So where it would go? So cloud has disrupted years ago this infrastructure industry, where all of you, if you are not considering, you can consider, you must have considered, but if you have not yet, you have to rethink your infrastructure strategy on cloud, how it is going to be scalable. So it is a cost saving, it's scalability, agility, and all the things that security, all the things that you get, so you can make an agile decision based on this disruption that is happening, and you can leverage and utilize that disruption. So similarly, I think, I'm sure my colleagues Amir and Irfan must have talked about 5G. So IoT is now connecting both, we call it like physical world and the virtual world, like we call digital twins. So that is also disrupting that the machines are creating, and it is producing, again, the insightful data. And insightful data disruption only can happen if you have the cloud with you. So all these things are really interconnected. And I think you just, for my humble suggestion for all the businesses, all the startups, all the young people, just look around you that what is happening in the industry. Is this a problem and opportunity? Don't give up, and come up with a solution, which is just don't solve the problem, but think that if I'm solving the problem, is it scalable? Is it sustainable? Can it be monetized? Can we make money at the end of the day? It's not like just about saying that, okay, we will keep growing slowly and gradually, and you run after some idea and the solution, and then you can't disrupt at a mega scale. So there is a lot to talk about the disruption. I can keep going, but I know I have 5 minutes, and I guess I used most of it. So thank you, Abad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And IT is in any ways is in the base of every industry and technology that we today talk about. So whatever changing that we are talking about, that IT industry is bringing in, it's part of every industry that you will interact about. Just moving on, Sami, to you, and clearly coming, and I will be asking question in this session on industry basis. We touched the IT industry. I will go to the FMCG touching. With all this that we are talking about today with e-commerce, and we are talking about direct-to-consumer approach, how these approaches are disrupting the FMCG industry today, and what is the challenges for the old entrants and the new entrants that are coming in the market, how they can manage this disruption in future?
Thank you, Saqib, for this question. Definitely there are more tailwinds on digital commerce in the FMCG industry than the headwinds. So to slightly set the context first, by the end of 2022, about 20% of total retail sales were through digital commerce. That amounted to about $5 trillion globally. FMCG was about 5 to 6%. That amounted to $25 billion globally. In Pakistan, the contribution of digital commerce, so we don't have any reported numbers, but the rough and the closest estimate says that today the contribution is about 2 to 2.5%. Now, how does the future looks like? And I'll also talk about, at times the disruption could happen overnight, like what we saw in COVID, but at times disruption is also a process that is ongoing. It is boiling up until the time comes when it really surfaces, and I'll talk about that as well. Now, the projections in the next 7 to 8 years are that the contribution of digital commerce in FMCG industry would go up to 20% globally, and of course this would vary between the developed economies and the emerging economies like of Pakistan. For Pakistan, this contribution is expected to go up to about 10 to 12%. What does that 10 to 12% mean? The estimated size of FMCG industry in Pakistan would be about 2 trillion rupees by the end of 2030. And when I'm saying FMCG, I'm talking about healthcare, I'm talking about home care, personal care, food and beverages categories, which account for about 80 to 85% of the FMCGs. Now, what does that mean from a Pakistan perspective? It means that the size of digital commerce in FMCG industry is going to be about 200 billion rupees. That's opportunity which is up for the taking. And why this is something which is going to happen now? So at times, looking at the segmentation of population is very, very important. I remember this goes back in 2009 to 2010. I saw this graph. That graph said that by 2020, Pakistan is going to be a fat nation. So this was the headline, that by 2020, Pakistan is going to be a fat nation. Of course, it got my attention. When I looked into it, it had a graph which said that by 2020, the split of Pakistani population by age segmentation is going to be such that 15 to 30% of the people who fall under the age of 15 to 30 would constitute 50 to 55% of Pakistan's population. And this is the age where we as a person, we tend to eat more. And we saw that as well. In FMCG industries, companies, categories that are related to food industries in Pakistan from 2018 to 2022, their CAGR versus previous years was very high. The food commodities, we also saw the demand went up. We used to do surplus in food commodities. We ended up importing food items as well. So at times, some of the similar trends can guide you where the future is heading towards. Now, coming back to my point, and thank you, Asif, you spoke about Gen Z. So this generation point of Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z, Generation Alpha, it holds a lot of meaning than these few words. If I look around in this room right now, so Generation X and Generation Y are the people, so Generation X are the people who were born in between 1965 to 1980, and Generation Y, millennials, they are the one who were born from in between 1980 to 1995. Gen Z, 95 to 2010, then Gen Alpha. If I look around, probably 80% people in this room, they belong to Gen X and Gen Y. Now, what is the difference? So people who are part of Gen Y, someone like me, so when I was a child, I used to ride on BMX, bicycles. Generation Z were doing scooties, and now Generation Z, Alpha, they do the fidget spinners. We saw the transition from VCRs to CDs. Gen Z saw it from CDs to DVDs and then to Netflix. So what is the difference? So Generation Z was the first generation that were exposed to digital, and Generation Alpha are the one who are growing in this digitally enabled world. Now the difference is, and my point of pointing out that why it's probably 80% of the people sitting in this room, we belong to Generation X and Y. So the late tail of Generation Z and the early lot of Generation Alpha, now they are more digitally savvy, digitally enabled. They are currently aged between 18 to 25. In the next 4 to 5 years, they will come in a position whereby from influencers, they will become the decision makers. And when they will become a decision makers, they look for convenience in digital versus, generation like of ours or generation prior to ours. So this digital commerce is set to boom. So this is going to happen. Nothing can stop it. So this disruption would definitely come. Now, how are we positioned today? If we look at it from our perspective, so clearly, if you ask me, with my experience in FMCG, we are in a much better position on B2C. So B2C includes players like platforms like Foodpanda, Crave Mart, and we see that, with the passage of time, and recently they've started to invest on grocery platforms as well. So we are in a much better place. The only watch out for B2C players should be that they should be ready with the bandwidth. They should invest on the capabilities today, and today they should not overspend on the grocery part. So they have to make sustainable investments just to make sure that they survive another 2 to 3 years. The boom would come in the years to follow.
Yeah.
B2B, on B2B, I think clearly there's a need to change the mindset. And we saw a year and a half ago, B2B was a huge thing, and then we saw that many went away also. The mindset shift has to be from the model of price cut to value creation. I'll not get deeper into it right now. And to you, another part of your question, Saqib, on D2C, I think basis our learnings as a global organization, because we operate around the globe with a turnover of about $38 to $40 billion per year, our learning across the markets is that the countries where B2C is emerging, there's a space for it to be developed, focus on it. Don't invest too early on D2Cs, otherwise you may end up closing it down with some disappointments. Wait for it. When the B2C establishes, it takes its ground, then start investing on D2C.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the elaborated answer. The only comment that I will make is this definition of Gen Zs and Generation X and Y, that doesn't take into account the heart of the person. So I think sometimes we need to judge the people on that fact also. So thank you very much for the elaborated answer.
Saqib, I was counting you in Gen Alpha, not in Gen X.
Adil, coming to you and continuing with the FMCG industry over there, what are the trends and technologies that are going to disrupt the FMCG industry in future? Directly to that specific points which can impact the people.
Thank you, Saqib. First, I want to thank Asfar and his team for putting together another outstanding event and giving us the opportunity to share our thoughts. When you talk about disruption, you have to talk about technology. And, I am from that school of thought that really thinks that data will become the great equalizer in this new world. This is already evident. One of the recent surveys to come out from Sarmaya Kar clearly shows that the financial inclusion in Pakistan has started to progress. It's not happening at the speed that we would like to happen, but it's happening. We are now at 30%, so financial inclusion defined as anybody in the formal economy with any form of digital, either digital banking or mobile phone wallet, etc., etc. So we are now at 30% as a country. Unfortunate part of the 30% is that the men are at about 45%, women are at only 15%. But that's a topic of a different platform, I guess. But data is starting to make a difference in the decision-making, not only happening in FMCG, but in every industry. And I think going forward, we need to relook the way we look at data and start looking at it as more of a raw material, like we look at raw materials at our factories. And I think once we do that, I think this is where the competitive advantage of any individual or a competitive advantage of any company would start to be. I think the second thing from a disruption standpoint in the industry is what is generally called as the ESG, but I would like to call it that citizenship, and there are two aspects to it. One is the sustainability part, where the consumer is now demanding more responsible, more responsibly created products from more responsible means. And the second one is the diversity and inclusion, or the equality and inclusion part, where for my company or for my sector, most of our shoppers are women. Are those shoppers, are those people who are buying our product, are they represented in the industry as a workforce or not? So to give you our example of PNG Pakistan, 5 years ago, our workforce had 30% women, 70% men. Today, we are represented equally at 50-50. The leadership team is about 55-60% female leaders. So I think if you represent your consumer in your workplace, I think that behavior will start to change, and that behavior will start to eventually answer some of the questions that the new technologies are asking the new consumer to ask. So I think broadly speaking, two trends. One, data needs to be looked at more of a raw material to take any and every decision that we take. and the equality and inclusion part and the sustainability. I think these trends are the ones that are disrupting the FMCG industry right now.
Thank you very much. Data is the new oil. Data is the new key. Data is something that we all will be depending on. All the AI that we are talking about, all the generative and predictive analysis that we are talking about is based on the data, and we have a lot of data. Absolutely right. And sustainability and inclusion and diversity is the direction to go in this disruptive world. Moving on, Aisha, to you. And generally talking about what are the key challenges in the agriculture sector and how the disruptive technology can help in solving these challenges for us.
Thank you, Saqib, and thank you everyone for being here. It's just great to see such a turnout, especially right now. So, talking about challenges in the agriculture sector, about 6 years ago, when we started really looking at agriculture in a deep way to understand how and where do we put our interventions and our investments, we had this wonderful associate, this young person who came in from the US and wanted to spend the summer doing something. And I said, why don't you do an assessment of the issues facing Pakistan's agriculture sector? And I thought he'll take a couple of weeks and be done with it. 3 months later, he put down like a 5-volume document at my desk, and he said, here are the problems with Pakistan's agriculture sector. So I will not go into those problems because we all know them many, and they range from all sorts of things that are related to the public sector, whether we have subsidies, don't have subsidies, lack of investments, farms are shrinking, farmers are getting older, we don't have seed, we don't have certified, pesticide or anything really in terms of input. But let's step back and look at what does that mean for the context. So just 5 or 6 days ago, our finance ministry told us that, by the way, we're growing at 0.3%, slightly lower. Others pushed at that estimate and said, no, actually, it's even lower than that. So let's say we're flat. Now let's also look at our population that's hovering around 2%. So when you look at a growing population and an economy that's flat at best, at the very basic level, the demand for food keeps increasing. And given the problems in the agriculture sector, where we're seeing a situation where per acre, our productivity is 30 to 50% lower, and we're not talking about best in class, we're looking at even regional comparables, we're lower in productivity. And then whatever we produce, 20 to 40% we waste also, because we don't have the cold storage, we don't have the logistics. So you're looking at this massive shortfall in our demand for food and our ability to produce food. And we're plugging it in different ways. So we've started becoming a net food importer in Pakistan. So if you think about it, an average meal for a Pakistani, let's take dal and roti and a cup of tea. Can you think through how much of that is imported? What component? Any guesses from the audience? He's saying 70? So about 90% of that meal is imported. Okay, this is an average meal for Pakistan: dal, roti, chai. Pakistan is the largest importer of tea in the world. Let's pause on that and say this is where we're at. And so as we're looking for various programs to get us out of our current account problems, $9 billion or so of food imports are keeping us afloat again. So the situation is one in which, when Saqib, you're talking about disruptive way forwards, we need to disrupt. Otherwise, it's an existential threat for us. This is a situation where already 90 million Pakistanis are food insecure, more are getting food insecure. About 40% of our children in some provinces are stunted because of malnutrition. So this is a country that is an agrarian country where 50% of our labor force is involved in agriculture, and we're not able to produce food. That is, by the way, so this is the large context. This is where the opportunities also lie. Because again, we have massive local demand. We have massive need to consume. And so as we look at trends, and in my place, as I think of putting capital into spaces that are going to grow, that are going to not only solve for a problem of food security, but are actually going to be large success examples, we have to keep a couple of things in mind. I think the first one is, how do we actually increase the efficiency of what we're producing? And how do we do this while making sure our farmers are at the center of it? You know, your farmer is not farming because they want to solve for food security or they're actually solving for a national problem. They're farming because they actually want to make money farming. So how do we make interventions and innovations along the value chain so that farmers are able to earn living wages and are able to thrive? What are technologies that enable us to do so? And over the past 3 to 5 years, we have seen a growing sort of cluster of really interesting solutions emerge. And these are the disruptions I'm talking about. And these are disruptions that are enabling farmers to have access to inputs and credit, and also connecting them with off-takers as well, because without those high-value marketplaces, you're not going to be able to produce anything that connects putting that value back to the farmers. And then I think the other problem we can also solve with this is, as we're looking at more and more import dependency, we need to start focusing on how do we build export potential in Pakistan, and we can. So we're seeing, again, more and more solutions emerge. And you know, we're talking about the situation in Pakistan right now that is reimagining and rethinking. It's also in many ways an opportunity, because now for the first time, we are seeing a real attempt at localizing supply chains. And nowhere are you seeing that more than in your food systems. So whereas we used to be able to import, you know, whatever quantity of tomato paste we wanted to from China, now we need to develop those things locally. So there is a massive opportunity in creating, disrupting the sort of easy, and I would say it's a lazy solution to just start importing things, but how do we disrupt those existing patterns and then say, look, we're going to provide local solutions that are serving the local market and are catering to a growing population that, frankly, we all need to do better for. And so those are the important areas. And as I said, it's a disruption that's not a choice. It is a necessity, and we absolutely need to get behind it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Aisha. And as she just said, and very rightfully said, that it's not a choice. It's necessary for our survival, and especially in the agriculture and food industry that we are talking about, the number of resources that we have and how we need to manage, that is an eye-opener for us today, and we need disruption in that industry to make our means. Going to you, Munas, and Munas, I know him personally, I know him professionally. I think one of the leaders that have managed the disruption in the best possible way in his organization. I think we all know the great work that K Electric is doing overall, and I know him as the vendor as well, because the kind of disruptions that they are hitting them and the way they are handling them is something marvelous out there. So Munas, thank you very much for that as a user and as somebody that works along with you. Munas, we have been talking about a lot of disruption, a lot of future, but every time when we go in, we need to have a future-proof organization. And when I say future-proof, I want to say that we want to build an organization which is ready for all the disruption, and nothing can disrupt them achieving their goals. How can we make that future-proof organization?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Saqib. And again, congratulations to Asfar for organizing such a fantastic avenue where all senior leaders are talking about this rethinking and disruption. Before talking about what we are doing, to Aisha, when you make that list of issues in agriculture, please put a line that these farmers, they don't pay for the tube well electricity they consume in Balochistan and Sindh, and we face huge problem in getting monies recovered from those farmers. So, whatever their situation is, but they don't pay for the electricity. So we have a problem there also. And the other thing that she talked about, and because of my experience, whenever I go to Dubai, my mother always tell me, "Arhar ki dal lekar aana." वो पाकिस्तान में नहीं मिलती. I don't know why. So, I have to get it from Dubai क्योंकि वो शायद it's a better quality. So, I think, and the other which statements made, it is not a choice. I think it is a necessity, absolutely. And again, coming from the power sector background, I think we are doing similar things again and again, and we are expecting different results. I think it will not happen. I will definitely talk about K Electric, but let me tell you, we are a small island in a sea in Pakistan. We are obviously one utility in Pakistan has, apart from us, another 9 distribution companies, government-owned and power sector, private sector-owned power generation, transmission, so on and so forth. So, if there is any sector, God forbid, that can bring Pakistan down, Khuda na khasta, is energy, which is petroleum and power. And looking at it and working in K Electric for a very long time now and understanding these issues to some extent, I would say that if we don't rethink our strategies, not only for K Electric but for the entire country, I think the numbers are going to be mind-boggling in terms of the circular debt, in terms of the ability of these distribution companies to make profits, and changing the entire landscape of power sector. By the way, I think it's a public knowledge now that K Electric has reported a loss of almost 40 billion for the 9 months. We are not proud about it, but I think the most important element of this loss is that while we have incurred this loss, but this loss is not contributing to the circular debt. It is being funded by our shareholders through reduction in their retained earnings, and we have to create funding to finance that loss. Whereas if the similar loss is incurred in any distribution company, inadvertently that amount ultimately is parked in a circular debt. So I think my strong recommendation, suggestion and disruption in power sector is to privatize on a national level. If you do that and you bring investor, you give them a tariff which is workable, give them targets, they achieve those targets, they make money. If they don't, they have to fund their losses, and those targets have to be market based. Those targets have to be something which they can achieve. So I think this is something which at the national level, I think everyone, government, regulator, they have to think about it, because I think we have seen these tariff increases because of which you can reduce circular debt, but it's a spiral effect. You increase the tariff, the recovery and T&D goes down, and you again add to the circular debt. And the tariff increase not always, give that ability of the people to pay. So you are disrupting the economics of businesses, ability to pay of people, and you are not solving the problem. So on a national level, I think we need to rethink how we can put this monkey on some investors' back, rather than government of Pakistan being responsible for collecting, distributing power for the entire country. So talking about K Electric, I think, we would again claim that I think we have demonstrated K Electric as an island of stability. We are part of Pakistan. We cannot operate, without the challenges that is being faced by the country. We also are facing all the problems in terms of these tariff increases. We are facing these issues in terms of imports. And again, it's not always easy to supply and collect power in a city which has 40% undocumented population. At the same time, I think what we have actually decided, and we have embarked on that journey, is to have a non-exclusive distribution license, which again seems to be very, I would say, aggressive. But I think because the biggest criticism on K Electric is that we are a monopoly, and we somehow do things which we should not do. So in fact, obviously it was requirement also, but we also decided that we will not challenge exclusivity, and we have gone for a non-exclusive license, and we would be very appreciative of the competition that is going to be in Karachi and obviously in other parts of Pakistan. We are looking at from perspective that fine, people can come and sell power in Karachi, but at the same time we can go and sell power in other parts of Pakistan. And that competition, we are not used to of having competition. There will be challenges, but hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, if this competition is created, probably everyone will learn from it. And ultimately, one of the previous participants talked about customer centricity. It is again a very important value at KE also. So if this competition can be created, I think customer is going to benefit, and we are looking towards it with a very positive eye, inshallah. We will be very forthcoming in terms of anyone distributing power. Obviously, we wait for the rules to come. Other than that, this power supply to Karachi, the biggest responsibility, and again, how we can help not only Pakistan and our customers in Karachi is to have a lower tariff. So we are targeting at least 30% of our generation to be from renewables, and by 2030 we will inshallah have around 1100 megawatts of solar and wind, and it will definitely bring the tariff down. At the same time, we are trying our best to bring the incremental power from indigenous resources, and we don't like the word coal, but I'm sorry, I like it because it is the only indigenous resource which can give us cheap power and which will have very limited impact, in fact no impact on the foreign exchange reserve. We need to understand that this is absolutely critical for Pakistan because we can rely on imported fuel, but we should have the foreign currency component available to pay for those costs also, the RLNG or any other fuel which is imported. So renewables along with hydel is the name of the game in the next few years, and it will inshallah bring that disruption which is needed. At the same time, the challenges that we are seeing right now with the opening of these import LCs, we are doing a lot of effort to bring localization of the things that are imported. We are working with all major industrial businesses in Pakistan. We had a conference also again organized by ASFR where we invited all major investors to look at what KE is going to buy in the next 7 years. We have filed an investment plan of almost 484 billion rupees, which actually if we convert it at today's rate, it goes to almost close to 600 billion PKRs. It will have very, I would say, defined items that will be put on distribution and transmission network. So the investors can actually see that this is going to be used by not only K Electric, but if KE as a distribution company is using these equipments, there is every likelihood that other distribution companies will also buy it. So there can be huge demand, and this crisis hopefully will be able to give this opportunity to people to produce these things locally, which will obviously it will improve the GDP, it will create employment, and obviously the reliance on foreign currency is going to be limited. So we are the sole power supplier to Karachi, and we expect CTBCM obviously to happen, but there will, even if CTBCM is implemented today, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of customers who will continue to be supplied by K Electric, and we feel this responsibility that the unregulated customers, the customers who will not be under CTBCM, should still have a better service. And as a private utility, we feel that this is important for us to ensure that we continue to have this similar service. And obviously, we have filed a tariff with the regulator. We need the tariff to be sustainable so that whatever investments we have to make, they can be financed from all the major lenders in Pakistan. and hopefully, inshallah, we understand that we need to change. And I think as a Karachiite looking at what we can do, we are rethinking every day to ensure that we maintain KE's position in a very dynamic environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Punas. I have got the time sheet, panelists, so this means 3 minutes each for the next question. I will be coming direct, Asif, to you. Asif, one disruption that you want to have in the IT industry today?
I think in our IT industry, I would say that if the disruption is going to happen, it's we all need to adopt cloud, AI, data. These are the things that we need to adopt. And I would like, since nobody talked about, Saqib, about the financial industry, which is very big in Pakistan. In the financial sector, financial services, as you know, when we're talking about disruption, fintech has disrupted the space, right? And now, if I give you an example, like Apple Pay have $1 billion of depositors on this phone, what they have done. Now, they have just used the Goldman Sachs banking license, and we call banking as a service. So in our industry, if you just, in any industry you think about it, is like banking as a service has disrupted the entire banking industry, and the new bank, challenger bank, digital banks are coming. And this, like anything that now Apple offers, they don't have to have a banking license, they don't have to have a core banking software. They've just used banking as a service. That's what now new trend is. Similarly, you might have heard about the embedded finance. Now, buy now, pay later type of use cases. Insurance companies are using embedded finance and connecting with the financial institutions. So it has revolutionized the entire financial industry. If you talk about these two trends even, it is amazing. So Saqib, to your point, like if I want to see that, people really need to think about, start from customer and disrupt their industry, whichever they are, and look at hyper automation and hyper personalization. What do I mean by hyper automation? Now you can keep talking about it, that AI will replace us and RP, robotic process automation, will replace us. So as Adil was saying, disruption starts with the technology, right? So how you can think about, in your field, in IT, we think about all the time, whatever the repetitive task, can we automate that? Can we hyper-automate that through robotics or intelligent process automation or business process reengineering, whatever you do. So in whichever field you are, you need to make sure that you are thinking about hyper-automation, because that can disrupt your own work, and hyper-personalization. Because now, my colleague Sami talked about like consumers, right? So now every consumer is different. Every customer engagement is different. Every customer wants a different thing. So if you can't personalize based on the data that you have, and that's why I call hyper-personalization, then you can't retain that customer in whatever field you are, whether you are a fund manager, whether you are a B2B, B2C, you are in a technology, e-commerce. So these are the things that I would like to see. And I think in our industry, everything is disruptive. Actually, in IT industry, every day is the new day. And if you can't catch up, if you are not thinking, at least you need to catch up, right? And you need to put technology in your forefront, whether you are a public sector or private sector, doesn't matter. Just put technology at your forefront. Disruption is nothing but, it reaches a strategic inflection point, and if you can't change yourself, then somebody else will take over and you will be legacy. So there are so many examples. I can keep going, but I think 3 minutes, I guess. Right.
Thank you very much. I think change is the key. AI is here to stay. Humans will not be replaced, but they will start using the AI in the best possible way. And we need to get ready with this set of information and how to utilize it. The problem is that historically we were the data banks. We used to carry a lot of information. Now we don't use to carry the information, we need to know how to use this information. And that's the difference that we need to learn. Sami, coming to you quickly over there. On one side we want growth and innovation, on the other side we want sustainability and eco-friendly environment. How to make that balance?
Thank you, Saqib, for keeping this question for me. This is one topic which is very close to my heart. I'll start my answer to your question with a single line and then I'll get into the details. Sustainability is a responsibility and an opportunity as well. Why it is a responsibility, and it is a bigger responsibility for our country. For those of you who don't know, Pakistan houses over 7,000 glaciers, and this cumulate the most ice in the world outside the countries which fall into polar regions. So Pakistan has got 7,000 glaciers, the most ice in the world outside polar regional countries. In the last 140 years, the temperature of our planet has gone up by 2 centigrades, and because carbon dioxide emission has accelerated, because we went through a industrialization era, by the end of this century, the expectation is the temperatures would further go up by 4 to 5 degrees centigrade. What would that mean? This would mean that the sea level is going to go up by 5 to 7 feet, and if it does that, there are many cities in this world, including one of ours, which will be drowned under the water. This is how big sustainability is. The problem with sustainability is that the level of awareness, unfortunately, is not very high. But as you start trying to learn the facts about sustainability, you realize that the more you know about it, you feel that, the lesser you knew about it. The more you read about it, you realize that lesser you knew about it. So sustainability is something that we have to take very, very seriously. So sustainability generally is classified under 2 facets. One is the sustainability of a planet, and then there's a sustainability responsibility of our societies as well, human rights, our child abuse, etc. So this has to be seen from both the angles. Now, this being said, and another very interesting fact that I would share with all of you, that every year, we're dumping a lot of plastic in our oceans, in our seas, that is completely destroying the marine life. One of the very, I would not say funny, but a very disappointing fact is you would be seeing a lot that companies making a claim, including us, I'll count ourselves in, that 90% of our packaging is recycled, 100% of our packaging is recycled. Today, around the globe, only 2% of recycled plastic is being collected. So there are only few countries in the world who have done really well, for some of the countries in Europe. Otherwise, we make those claims that recycled packaging, but there's no collection system. That means that this plastic is going into the ocean, we are destroying the marine life, and the temperatures will further go up. Anyway, so that is the responsibility part. If we have to give a better planet to our generations to come, we have to act now. Now, I spoke about opportunity, and I know senior leaders and CEOs are sitting here, and it becomes really difficult when we don't present an opportunity in terms of business size to our boards to get these sustainability projects approved, right? That's the reality as well. Few interesting facts. So who are the key stakeholders in this sustainability value chain? They are consumers. Now the researchers are showing, as people around the world, they're getting more aware about the sustainability issues and the health of this planet. In developed economies, 50% of the consumers want themselves to be associated with the brands who are doing something good for this planet or for the communities. 70% of the employees in the companies, they feel good about, the retention level goes up when they see their companies are talking about society, the issues that matters to the society, the things that the companies are doing for the planet. Governments in some of the countries, and this will, we see that the trends that emerges in developed economies, sooner or later they come to our countries as well. Governments are taking initiatives in the few countries where the usage of sugar after a certain level has been completely banned, so you cannot do it. Warning has been given to the companies that you have to move to 100% renewable energy to reduce the carbon dioxide emission by so and so period, otherwise you would not be allowed. So even from a continuation of the business perspective, sustainability is very important. What is the opportunity? The opportunity is, so if consumer feels good about sustainability, if you do a sustainability initiative, and I'll just quickly share in 30 seconds one of the initiatives that we did in one of a market in Australia. We have this brand by the name of TNCC. It's organic jellies. We completely moved to 100% renewable energy on our jellies plant. The benefit of 90,000 carbon dioxide reduction in emission that we got out of it, it was communicated on the packaging. It was put on the POS material, executed. We slightly took the price up by as well 10%. And not only our consumer loyalty increased, but our sales also went up. In Pakistan as well, because I said that this is one topic which is very close to my heart as well. In Pakistan as well, so we have done now 135 kilowatt of small solar plant. We have 2 plants which are being operated in hub. And now we are setting up a solar plant of 1.35 megawatt, which will completely take our plant energy consumption to renewable energy by the end of 2024 or by the mid of 2025. All the chocolate that we source now around the globe, it is Coca Life. Coca Life means that we care for the farmers.
So Sami, I have to interrupt you now because you have taken the time, your two colleagues as well. So thank you very much, Sami. I've got 3 messages in between. Adil, over to you. And sorry for the short time. What a disruptive thing that you want in the FMCG industry now? No.
So one disruption that we all must encourage not only in our industry, but in Pakistan's economy overall, is our ability to localize as much as possible and localize in a way that it creates the ability to export. And we've been at this journey over the last 5 to 8 years, and we have gotten to a place where over 90% of our products, you take, if you're using, I hope all of you, if not most of you, are using Head & Shoulders and Pantene, Pampers, Always, Gillette, Blue 3. These are all now made in Pakistan. Over 92%, as I said, of our sales are made in Pakistan. 100% of our pack materials are now made in Pakistan. It's a significant part of our raw materials are now made in Pakistan. And as we were on this journey, we realized that there is tremendous potential, there is tremendous skill available in Pakistan that can turn this around. And I think going forward, the structure of Pakistan's economy will only change if we create the capacity and the capability to change and localize in a way that generates exports for us.
Thank you very much, Adlan. To be honest, very concise and clear. Aisha, how would the small-scale investments in Pakistan can take benefit of these disruptions that we are talking about? What are their challenges and how they can make benefit of this one?
Thank you for this. So investments, whether they're small or large, I think at the end of the day, the fundamentals in Pakistan, you have 250 million people. And as we're going through this reimagining by force somewhat, I think we're going to see more and more an emergence of really exciting clusters of entrepreneurs that have survived. We've gone through multiple shocks. The world has gone through many shocks, but Pakistan has gone through perhaps a few more than the world has. Those who survive, and I'll give you a slightly less optimistic example. We had a pipeline. We were setting up a fund, and before you set up a fund, you set up a pipeline of companies. We had about 300 really interesting agri-tech companies last year, all of which were really ready for early stage capital in the range of $1 to $3 million each. Now, as we went through first COVID shock, then supply chain shocks, then macro shocks, now political uncertainty with the PKR USD reval, we've seen a large majority, a significant chunk of these companies actually no longer remain viable because the plans they started off with are no longer the plans that are relevant for this context. Now, the exciting part about that is the ones that are able to pivot and the ones that are able to recognize the new context and reshape their processes are the ones that you can invest in. Because, look, this is the reality of a frontier market like Pakistan. A certain amount of volatility will remain. If you're looking for risk-free returns, then maybe you should be, as investors, looking outside emerging markets, outside frontier markets. You invest in countries like Pakistan for the potential of growth, but of course, then have the ability to withstand the risks and the volatility. So I think the disruptions and the exciting opportunities are coming in every space. My space, of course, is one of climate sustainable agriculture, because at its core, I think no nation can really grow unless we're able to ensure affordable, nutritious food for everyone. And unless we're able to solve for that as locally as possible, we won't be able to address any of our development goals. But I think there are lots and lots of opportunities. Some of those amazing entrepreneurs are here in this room as well, and there are many more that I hope will see the space and come in. The future is an exciting one, and it will be written by those who can see the world as it can be, not those who are looking and getting despondent by facts on the ground right now.
Thank you, Aisha. Your last comments were future is exciting, which leads to my next question to Munas. Do you want the technology to run in the same pace, or do you feel it is impacting our social fabric a lot and it should need to slow down? How do you see it?
Saqib, I think the social fabric has to improve with the technology. And you know, it is impossible that if technology is available, you can't use it. And, you know, people often talk about it that if technology is there, probably there's going to be some unemployment or, you know, you'll reduce, you know, the manpower. But I think technology, we talk about, if we talk about 15, 20 years ago, the use of computer was very limited. Now, I think if people don't know computer, they are unemployed probably, most likely. So has it created unemployment? No, the skill set improves. And, you know, and at KE again, I'll talk about KE, we are looking at many areas where technology is actually improving the overall performance, efficiency, and at the same time, you know, the people who were doing whatever they were doing, and now it is being, for example, I talk about meter reading. So all the industrial units are now read electronically. No specific visit is needed. The meters talk to us, and we can get data after every 15 minutes. It does not mean that all the meter readers are now, you know, they have a social impact and they are not there. So they are trained in a different environment for different things, and they are used. So the future, and if you need to have the quality of service to the customers, which ultimately in a competitive environment would be using the best available, least cost supply, you cannot avoid technology. So everyone has to understand where they can use technology, and we have talked about AI. I think we are doing a lot of machine learning in terms of the recovery. We have a lot of data where people are not paying, and the algorithms tell us, you know, who you can go and actually target. So the human element definitely is reducing, and the technology is taking it over, but it is increasing our ability to do things much more efficiently. So the future is technology. How can you live without technology?
Thank you very much, panelists. If I have to summarize the panel, I will say technology is here to stay. We need to learn how to adopt with it. We need to learn how to change with it. We need to understand and talk about how this technology is part and parcel of our coming life. We, as a responsible citizens and human, needs to make sure that we define the ethical boundaries which are required to be governed to make this technology part to our day-to-day life. IT is the base layer across all industries, and this IT is becoming and make disruptions going along across all industries. And these disruptions are good because they are getting more efficiencies in our system, they are giving more opportunities to the people, and most importantly, we need to understand that there's a hell of a lot of data that is available, and we need to know how to navigate through this data. We are not required to have now sets of data in our minds. It's all about how we can get the best set of information that can lead to us. And I can give you one example. You have attended the 2 sessions together. Some of you may be thinking that where these all questions are coming in my mind, it was 30 minutes job on ChatGPT that I got these 8 questions. Honest answer. It's just about how you navigate the set of informations to get these questions and ask to the right people out there. That's how technology can enable us to get the best results. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you for a delightful discussion. Of course, climate is a huge, huge monster right there. It's, I think, already rolled out. So it's not just action, but a very strong action, which is required now. IT, of course, is there to stay. Technology is there to stay. And technology, not per se just the technical part of it or the efficient part of it, but also inclusivity. Digitization, I think, has brought the world together. This online metaverse has actually created everything right here accessible, and it's giving way to a lot of new opportunities. So when we say that technology will not replace humans, but definitely it will train and create more opportunities for humans to excel in, and of course different skill sets. So thank you, this was so insightful. I will now request Mr. Ali Akai.
So before we give souvenirs to these speakers, there's just one announcement that I'd like to make, please. The last address of the day will be delivered by our guest of honor, His Excellency Nicolas Galli, the Ambassador of France, and we've decided that we're going to be shifting 2 keynote addresses, one by Mr. Michael Foley, the other one by Mr. Jimmy Wen, to tomorrow morning, because we want the program to end on time, so that you're back here tomorrow all bright and chirpy and fresh and well rested. So this was the announcement I wanted to make just before you wanted to give the souvenirs, Shaha. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabia. Yes, in the interest of time, so I'll request Ali Akai, Chairman Martin Dow, to please join us on stage. I will also request our Chief Executive Strategic Engagements, Natural Group, Air Chief Marshal Sir Suhail Aman Sahab. Please, if you could join us on stage. I will also request His Excellency Nicolas Galli to please join us on stage to give away the souvenirs to our esteemed panelists here. Thank you. Shall we start? I'll request Asif Pir, Chief Executive Officer, Systems Limited. Claps would do very nicely. Thank you, that's so encouraging. Thank you. Adil Farhat, Chief Executive Officer, Procter & Gamble, Pakistan. Dr. Aisha Khan, Regional Manager Director, Acumen. Syed Munis Abdullah Alvi, Chief Executive Officer, K Electric Limited. Sami Wahid, Managing Director, Mondelez, Pakistan Limited. And finally, our moderator for the last two sessions, Saqib Ahmed, Managing Director, SAP, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. If I could also request our esteemed panelists to please stay back on stage. We have the address now by His Excellency Nicholas Galley. After the group photo, yes, of course. So if I could request our guest of honor for the closing address of the day, His Excellency Nicholas Galley, to please join us here at the podium for his address. Thank you so much.
Good evening, or rather, I think we can say good afternoon, or we can say good evening now. Thank you very much for having me. All of you, I think, in your businesses are striving every day to promote your companies and products, and that's perfectly natural. And in the many activities of an ambassador, of diplomats in general, is also to promote globally their countries and the companies of their countries. So I'm going to say a few words about the French economy and about investment in France. I would like first to thank the organizers of this event, impressive event, and as many said before me, very good attendance and high quality people, in particular Natural Group and Martin Doe, and special thanks to the chairman of Martin Doe, Mr. Ali Ahai, for giving me this opportunity to stand in front of this distinguished audience and to present some information about investment in France. Taking stock on a recent event which President Macron held 2 weeks ago, it was the 5th edition of an event called Choose France, a meeting of prominent world businessmen, more than 200 from all continents, who were invited in the Palace of Versailles, and which this year again was a great success in terms of attendance and of number and value, about $30 billion of investment projects announced, resulting in about 8,000 direct job creation, in particular in medium-sized cities. So, to take again the name of this event, why choose France? Here I'm not talking about choosing France as a destination for your next holidays, although I can only encourage you to be part of the 90 million tourists who visit France every year, making France the first tourist destination in the world. But today I would like to talk of France as an investment destination. According to the last EY survey, France is Europe's most attractive country for the 4th year running, with 1,259 investment projects in 2022. Last year, France became more attractive than ever in a complex international environment, with an average of 32 investment decisions per week. France ranks highest in terms of industrial projects, with 547 registered last year, and ranks also number 1 in terms of R&D, and continues to be seen by foreign investors as a land of innovation. France is also experiencing some of the strongest growth in Europe, with 142 R&D hubs in 2022. French regions offer a unique environment which makes them particularly attractive. The size of the job pool, the presence of talent training infrastructure, a research and innovation ecosystem in synergy with businesses, all assets that make different regions stand out internationally and attract foreign business investment that correspond to each region's assets. Paris is not France, and France is not only Paris. Regional capitals like Lyon, Marseille, Bordeaux, Toulouse, also nicknamed Airbus City, play a central role in France's economic development and are major innovation centers. And beyond our borders, France is obviously a gateway to the huge and wealthy EU market, but also to Africa. What you will find in France, why you would find in France attractive is the global environment that is made of excellent public infrastructures, quality public services, which are either free or very cheap, in terms, for instance, of education, healthcare, or culture. The positive momentum is a sign of international investors' confidence over the long term in France and the policy conducted under President Macron for the past 6 years. Since 2017, France's attractiveness has been enhanced through a major structural reform program aiming at transforming the economy, businesses' activity, and to boost competitiveness. As all this explains the excellent ranking of France in terms of global investment in the world, which shows that businesses know the realities of the country beyond what the media may sometimes report about the situation in France. Let me underline some key elements of those reforms. A tax environment conducive to investment. We have decreased the corporate taxation, which is returning to the European average. Second, the transformation of the French social model, which has boosted flexibility and competitiveness thanks to the 2017 labor law reforms. Third, an attractive ecosystem for international talent, with the talent passport residence permit valid for 4 years, including for accompanying family members. Fourth, simplified administrative procedures and setting up in France is now made easier. So why Pakistani company should invest in France? Mainly because we need to develop an economic relationship based not only on a supplier-to-client relationship, but on reciprocal partnership. Our economic exchanges are still far short of their potential, taking into account the vast trade opportunities offered by the Pakistani market on the one hand, and the expertise France and French companies can offer in such varied fields as renewable energy, urban development, food processing, or consumer products. So we must endeavour to do better and more in a context that remains challenging. In fact, trade between France and Pakistan increased by 20% in 2022, reaching now more than $2 billion. And during the same year, French export increased by 18%, about $500 billion. Although, of course, our exports were severely impacted by the import reduction policy. In the same time, a nearly $1.6 billion Pakistani export to France have exceeded their all-time high in sector covered by the GSP Plus mechanism, that is textile and leather products. Pakistani companies have increased their presence in France thanks to two major investments made in 2016 by, of course, Martin Doe in the pharmaceutical sector. But we know many more who are willing to develop their business activities in our country. In this regard, let me mention Business France, which is a public network of experts in France and in 55 offices in the world. Their mission is to inform investors on a daily basis about opportunities, put them in contact with government decision makers, and assist them in setting up their businesses. Obviously, the economic session of the embassy here in Islamabad and myself will remain at your disposal to discuss any prospect or project you would like to develop in France. Beyond the business aspect, the exchanges we aim to promote will definitely further strengthen our bilateral ties and be an occasion for French and Pakistani entrepreneurs to know each other more and to establish long-term, friendly and fruitful relations. With this, let me conclude by saying that the objective of this presentation is to provide you with information you may not always have or have in mind about the French economy. France may be primarily known in Pakistan for its historic size, the Romans of Paris or the glamorous Riviera, and as far as products are concerned, for its luxury industry. And all this indeed exists and represent a very sizable part of our economy. I mentioned the importance of the tourism industry, at the beginning of this speech, but needless to say that the famous French fashion and perfume brands are also a considerable asset for exports. But beyond this, French economy is very diverse, dynamic and innovative. Therefore, I can only encourage all of you to follow the example of Martin Doe, while thanking again Mr. Akai and Nutshell Group for having me today. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Shukriya.
Thank you very much, Excellency. So as I announced previously, the closing address for day one was delivered by His Excellency Ambassador of France to Pakistan, whereas the remaining two addresses will be shifted to tomorrow morning. I will request Chief Executive Strategic Engagements Nutshell Group and former Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sohail Aman, to please join us on the stage to present a token of our appreciation to His Excellency. Ali, are you in the hall? Mr. Ali Akai, are you around? Ali, if you could please join on the stage for the group photo. Is Shahrukh around? Shahrukh, please, let's join for the group photo. Is Mr. Javed Ghulam Muhammad also here? He's not? Okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of day one of Leaders in Islamabad Business Summit 2023. We hope to see you tomorrow morning. We will start at 9 a.m. sharp. We have a stellar panel tomorrow. A number of our international speakers as well as local corporate leaders will be talking about digital disruption, diversity and inclusion, education, metaverse, and much more. So we look forward to tomorrow. Thank you and have a good evening.